Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Pachter and I'm so excited to be part of the Torah Anytime daily learning of Elul. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah is coming up and I gotta be honest, when I first started to become observant, and even before I was observant, I was sort of thinking like, Rosh Hashanah is such a joy kill. Like every other culture has it right? They party on their new year, they set new resolutions, they set intentions, life is good, they go out, they forget about life, they have fun. And come along the Jews and we're like, we're gonna make a joy kill, everybody. We're gonna make Rosh Hashanah a day of judgment where your entire year is gonna be based and judged on this day. Like, what a joy kill. If you look at it from that perspective, it's maybe the worst holiday. So I want to show you that actually Rosh Hashanah is not a day of judgment the way we think of judgment, like a court case. It's actually the greatest gift that God has ever given to mankind. And I'm going to show you how. You see, when we think about a court case, you have a jury, you have a judge, you have the defendant that gets all dressed up to go into court, because essentially Rosh Hashanah is a court case for each and every one of us, and we get scared. And you think about how the fact that the defendant in a human court system gets all dressed up, not because they're happy, not because they're excited, but because they're afraid and they're trying to make the best impression. There's even groups that will tell defendants what to wear, what not to wear, what to avoid, so that they will elicit more compassion from the jury. But that's not why we get dressed up on Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah, our court case, is really different from a human court case because God judges totally differently. You see, when he's looking at our clothing and when we get dressed up and go to synagogue, God doesn't see externals. He penetrates right to the inside of every person. He sees our secrets. He knows our deepest desires. He's not looking at our clothing from an external point of view. And essentially, he's also not judging us from the outside. You have to understand that God is judging us, each and every one of us, completely on an individual basis. It says that we come like sheep before God, and one by one, God judges us. Okay, so what does that mean? Coming before God like a sheep? So there's a beautiful idea that just like sheep come before the shepherd one by one, individually, we are approaching God on Rosh Hashanah. He doesn't judge us compared to anyone else. He's only looking at our story and our background and seeing right through, penetrating to the inside of who we really are and what we really want for the year. I'm going to tell you a story to illustrate it. And I actually heard this from Rabbi Lawrence Kalaman, unbelievable rabbi and speaker. And he was a teacher of mine for a good solid year. And he told a story that I will never forget. It's a true story about a woman who, when she was born to a heroin addict, which meant that as a baby, she had that addiction. And, she was passed from door to door. Nobody really wanted this child. She would be left at people's doorsteps. And by the time she was 13 years old, she turned to prostitution to keep up her drug habits, which is really, really terrible. And she used to go down to this valley where a lot of druggies would go. And every single day, she would shoot up heroin. And everybody around her would do it too. So she goes, and one day, she sees a man in a wheelchair. And that man is shooting up heroin. And something about seeing a man in a wheelchair just sitting there doing drugs shook her to her core. She woke up. And she said, I can't let this be my life. So what does she do? She walked away from this valley where everybody did drugs, and ironically, down the street, a couple blocks away, was a drug rehabilitation center. So she goes to the drug rehab center, and when she walks in, there are these sliding doors. She has a choice. She can at least go and get clean needles for herself. She can make a left, get clean needles, or she could walk straight to the back, check herself in, and hopefully become a drug-free woman. So she's standing by the sliding doors, and she looks to the left at the clean needles, and she made the strong decision to go straight. Checks herself in. She spends 9 months, 9 grueling months going through withdrawal, going through the whole 9 yards. It was a very, very difficult ordeal. And finally the day comes where she can become a drug-free woman, and she's able to leave. So now she's leaving the drug rehab center. And now, to her right, there's a box of clean needles. And she's faced with a choice again. Should I relapse and get some clean needles, or should I walk out a drug-free woman? And unfortunately, she made the choice to make a right, and she goes to the woman behind the counter and she says, I want a box of clean needles. Now, they don't ask questions. They handed her the box, and she leaves. And just as we all know, a lot of people relapse very, very shortly after leaving. She ended up going back to the valley. She walks down where everybody's shooting up, and she takes out a needle and she hands it to the first guy. She says, here, at least take a clean needle. Here, at least take a clean needle. And she's literally handing out clean needles to everyone she sees. She goes back day 2 for another box of needles. Day 3, she's doing this for weeks. And finally, she goes back to the drug rehab center and she says, look, I know that I just left this facility and you're taking a major gamble, but I really want to help people. And I know that I have the power to help individuals like myself. Please train me how to be a therapist. Teach me how to help people. I want to change lives. And they did take a chance on her. She ended up becoming a drug rehab specialist, and she ended up saving thousands, not hundreds, thousands of people from their drug addictions. So why am I telling you this story? Because I sat in a class with Rabbi Kellerman, who told us this story. And apparently it's based on a true story, and the woman actually, there's a book written about her. It's a real person, and this really happened to her. But why do I tell you this story? Is because Rabbi Kellerman is a very, very holy man, right? You look at him, he looks super Jewish, he's got all the garb, and he stood in front of us that day. He was my teacher. And in front of at least 100 women, he says, after 120 years, at the end of days, I can only hope and pray that I will be 1 iota close to where this woman will be in heaven. And we're all looking at him like shocked. This woman, yes, she was Jewish. She never once dressed in the modicum of modesty, so to speak, unless maybe by accident. She never once kept kosher in her life. And yet Rabbi Kellerman, who was a really big rabbi, was only hoping to be where she would be in heaven. So you got to think about this, because what that tells me is that God doesn't judge our externals. He's not looking at our outer garb. He's penetrating who we are inside. Life isn't about how high you are on your spiritual ladder. It's how many rungs you've climbed. So maybe this woman who was born a drug addict, if we're looking like metaphorically like a ladder, you've got this ladder going up between you and God, and each rung represents a level of closeness to God. So in her lifetime, when she was born, maybe she was born at a -20. So today she's at a level 5. Wow, that's amazing. Maybe Rabbi Kellerman, and I'm not speaking anything negative about Rabbi Kellerman, but maybe he was born on a level 20 and he moved up to level 22. I don't know what the levels are. So we might look at someone who's on a level 22 like Rabbi Kellerman and say, wow, he's the winner here. She's on a 5, he's on a 22. We know who the good guy is. But God doesn't judge us based on what rung we are at. He judges us based on how many rungs we've climbed. And so we have to look at who we are, where we're coming from. He doesn't judge externals. He sees right through it all. And he's judging us based on where we're coming from and where we want to go. And this is the concept. I'm about to blow your mind with something else, because speaking of that whole ladder and the rungs and growth and coming close to God, if you think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, this is a beautiful idea that I heard. It actually doesn't make any sense, because Rosh Hashanah is all about our future, and Yom Kippur is all about our past. So in theory, Yom Kippur should come first. We should deal with our past first, and then Rosh Hashanah move into the future. The reason is that God doesn't determine our future based on our past. We create our future. We create ourselves on Rosh Hashanah. If you come to the table during Elul, during this month, and by Rosh Hashanah, and you with a whole heart ask God to help you climb your ladders of your rung, God sees, God penetrates, and he's going to help you. So in essence, we're looking to become big. And I heard a really, really nice idea from Rabbi Cooper Smith. He says Rosh Hashanah isn't about like God checking his list like Santa Claus, like who's been naughty, who's been nice, let me see who's going to get punished and who's going to get rewarded. That's not what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is about. What's really happening is we are asking God to create a year for us, to create a role for us in our year that is big. We're trying to expand ourselves so that this coming up year can be amazing. And we're looking to place ourselves and ask God, what role are you going to give me this year? It's not about who's naughty or nice. It's about creating your future year. So in essence, we got to become big. And how do you become big? How do you prepare during this month of Elul for Rosh Hashanah? In 3 ways, okay? Way number 1 is something called your choice box. This, I have to tell you, is my favorite idea of any idea when it comes to Judaism. This is it right here. It's called in Hebrew, Nakuda HaBachira, your choice box. All right, here's how it works. The only thing you are responsible for in Judaism is something called your choice box. Now I got good news and I got bad news. I'm gonna give you the bad news first, okay? Here's the deal. Every time you walk by a Rolex store or a Van Cleef store, I don't know, something fancy on Rodeo Drive, okay? And you see these beautiful pieces of jewelry, beautiful diamond necklaces, beautiful watches in the window. Every time you walk by and you don't steal that Rolex, you're not getting rewarded. Sorry, it's just too beneath you. It's like so obvious. You would never go into a store and steal something. It's so beneath you that it's not in your choice box. It's like, obviously, right? So you're not being rewarded every time you walk by the store. But here's where it gets good. All the things that are too high and out of reach on your choice box, you're also not being punished for that. So God doesn't hold it against you. If there's, let's say for example, you're first exposed to Shabbat for the first time in your life and you're like, wow, I love Shabbat, but it's way too hard for you to keep. You're not being punished if you don't keep Shabbat because you're not there yet. It's way too out there. It's not even a possibility for you at that point. So anything that's too high for you or too low for you, it's not in the realm of reward and punishment. God's not holding it against you. The only thing that matters is the choice box. It's the area where you struggle. It's the place where you sometimes succeed and you sometimes fail. It's the place where, sometimes you do it and you knock it down and you get it right, and sometimes you fail. I'll give you an example in my own life. I'll be sitting at the Shabbat table. We have guests. I have my 5 kids, my husband, and I've got a juicy piece of information to share. And I'm about to say it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, you'll never believe what happened. And everyone's like, what, tell me. And everybody wants to hear it, and I have a moment. Do I share the juicy information, or do I hold back? Because I want to remember that I do have 5 kids, and I don't want them to view me as somebody who speaks about other people. Sometimes I succeed, and sometimes I fail. But that's the choice box. That's the place where we have quote unquote reward and punishment from God. So the goal is that we want to work over and over at what's in our choice box so that eventually that becomes easy. I want to work so hard at not speaking negatively about people that becomes my Rolex moment, right? I kind of push it down to the point that becomes the new baseline. And that's how we slowly climb the ladder, the spiritual ladder. So in essence, we're taking things that feel really big and we're bringing them down to size. And that's how we become bigger. Okay, that's way number one, is your choice box. Story number two about becoming big. I'll tell you like this. My aunt, who has passed away, had a property in the South. I'm actually from the South originally. I'm from Atlanta. So she had this property in the South. It was not in Georgia. It was in North Carolina. I don't know. It must have been 200 acres. She had a beautiful house. And I remember 5 years old, I walk into her house and like, whoosh, it goes straight up to the second floor. And I'm like, wow, this is enormous. And then we didn't visit my Aunt Laura for a while in her house. Maybe she came to Atlanta or we took some trips together. But the next time I walked into her home, I was 17 years old. And I will never forget, I walk into the same property, walk right in, and I'm like, oh, it's just a 2-story house, right? Because the bigger I became, the smaller the house felt. And so I want to talk to you about what that means to become big in a true story. I have a student who both of her parents were alcoholics growing up. Really, really devastating. She was essentially neglected on some levels, and it was very, very painful for her. But she used to babysit as a teenager, and she once went to someone's house to babysit. It was a little boy that she was babysitting for. And her father, this teenager whose parents were alcoholics, her father was actually running for mayor. It's a true story. And the boy, the child, said to her in front of his mom, as the mom was leaving for the night, he goes, "Your dad, I can't believe he's running for mayor. He's just a drunkard." Literally threw it out. Now, he probably heard his parents talking like that and he was just repeating it. But this person was really, really mortified. But she didn't say anything. She babysat the kid. You know, kids say things, they didn't mean it. And she went home. The next day, the mother of the child brought the child to this woman who was a teenager at the time, to her house, knocked on the door, and the woman, we'll call her Samantha, opens up the door, the young woman, she's a teen, and she sees the little boy that she had babysat the night before and the mother of the boy. And the mother said, "I brought my child back because I am so sorry that he spoke this way about your father. Please, please forgive us." And this woman, Samantha, said, "Yeah, it's no problem, don't worry, it's okay, don't worry about it at all." And the mother said to Samantha, "You are so magnanimous. You are so big. And this is what we want to achieve. We want to slowly climb that ladder, have the strength to forgive other people so that God can then forgive us. And the way to do it is you've got to be so big that the things that happen to you in life no longer penetrate, they no longer hurt you." So speaking of becoming big, there's the last way to become big, and that is through one of the promises that God makes to the Jewish people about our future. Speaking of future and Rosh Hashanah, so Hashem promises to Abraham, that we're going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. We're going to be a huge nation. And there's a lot of questions on this because, we're still a pretty big minority in the world. And some people say, okay, yes, the Jewish people are a minority, but we've made such a huge impact on the world in terms of technology, in terms of peace, in terms of all different areas, science, medicine, that, percentage-wise we might be small, but the impact has been huge. But I want to tell you a story that really visually brought this concept home, that we're going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And it's about Yishai Ribo. This is a famous singer in the Jewish world. Religious, observant, non-religious, non-observant. A lot of Jewish people love his music. He's got great, great music. And it's a crazy story what happened to him. He had just given a free concert to an orphan. This is a while back. And, the family of the orphan was there, and he did it for free. He did not charge at all. And shortly after giving this concert to the orphan, the family of the orphan called, the aunts, the uncles, and they said, "I'm so sorry, Yishai, but we were tested for COVID, and we have COVID." This was during COVID. "And we have COVID, and you need to test for COVID because you probably have it now." So Yishai Ribo tested, and of course, he had COVID. And he had 2 scheduled paid performances that he was now going to have to cancel. And he was really, really devastated about it. And he felt like, I did this nice act, no good deed ever goes unpunished. I did this really nice act, and now I have to cancel 2 paid performances. Then he gets a call shortly after, and it's from Madison Square Garden. And they asked him to do his very first concert at Madison Square Garden. And they said to him, the one condition that you could do it is that you have COVID and you have proof that you have COVID. That means you tested for it and it came out positive, because we don't want any liability. And so because he contracted COVID, that enabled him to accept the Madison Square Garden concert. That was a sold out concert. And just last year, he did his second sellout concert at Madison Square Garden. Now, the reason I tell you this is that somebody sent me a beautiful, beautiful email with the recording of his Madison Square Garden concert from last year. And they open up, and it's a dark room. You've got all the stage and everything. And all of a sudden, you see all the lights of everybody's cell phone, and they're in the crowd, and you see hundreds upon thousands of lights in the audience. And it reminded me of the dark sky and the beautiful lights of the stars. And I said, maybe that's what it means. Because year after year, generation after generation, the other nations have tried to wipe us out. The Nazis could have wiped us off the face of the earth. The Egyptians, they certainly tried to rid the earth of our presence. Hamas, all day long, all year long, every group of people, there's always someone in every generation that wants to knock us out. And yet, we are like that auditorium, Madison Square Garden, filling the world with light. And maybe that's what it means, that we're going to be like the stars in the sky, not just in numbers, but in light. And so that is how we become big on Rosh Hashanah. That is how we grow. Remember, choice box, forgiveness, and the stars in the sky. And hopefully we can come to Rosh Hashanah with confidence and joy. We get dressed up not because we're afraid of God, but because we're confident that He's going to give us our best year yet. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, meaningful Elul and an amazing year, an amazing Rosh Hashanah. Thank you.